Iskon Guru Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shishiko Nitai Maya Bhashakti Ki Jai. Go, Premanandi. Thank you. Reading from the Nectar of Devotion. This section is entitled Qualities Krishna's Personality. Dhira Prashanta. So, Dhira Prashanta. There's Dhira Lalita, Dhira Prashanta, and Dhira Datta. A person who is very peaceful, the Dhira Prashanta trait of Krishna was exhibited in his dealings with the Pandavas. On account of the Pandavas' faithful devotion to the Lord, he agreed to become their charioteer, their advisor, their friend, their messenger, and sometimes their bodyguard. Such an example of the result of devotional service toward Vishnu. When Krishna was speaking to Maharaj Yudhisthira about religious principles, he demonstrated himself to be a great learned scholar. But because he accepted the position of younger cousin to Yudhisthira, he was speaking in a very gentle tone, which enhanced his beautiful bodily features. The movements of his eyes and the mode of his speech proved that he was very, very expert in giving moral instructions. Sometimes Maharaj Yudhisthira is also accepted by learned scholars as Dhira Prashanta. Srila Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 7, and it's the chapter entitled Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. And we're on text 41. Aho Shariram Ratam Indriyani. Aho Shariram Ratam Indriyani. Hayan Abhishun Mana Indrasham. Hayan Abhishan Mana Indrasham. Oh, sorry. I was supposed to revise for it, but I wouldn't know. Aksham dasa pranam adama damo. Aksham dasa pranam adama damo. Chakre vimanam ratinam cha jivam. Chakre bimanam ratinam cha jivam. Dano hi tasya pranavam patanti. Dana hi tasya pranavam patanti. Sharam tu Shivam Param Eva Laksham. Sharam tu Jivam Param Eva Laksham. Aksham Dashapanam Adam Adamo. Chakre Bininam Ratitam Chajiva. Danohi Tasya Pranavam Patanti. Sharam tu Jivam Param Eva Laksham. Aksham dasa pranamadhamadamo. Chakre binam ratinam chajivam. Dano hitasya pranavam patanti. Jananda. Sharam tujivam param eva laksham. Bolo. Adamo. Chakre bimanam ratitam chajiva. Dano hitasya pranavam patanti. Sharam tujivam parameva laksham. Sadadamradamo. Chakre binam ratinam chajiva. Dano hitasya pranavam patanti. Sharam tujivam parameva laksham. Dasha pranamadamo. Chakre binam ratinam chajivam. Dano hitasya pranavam patanti. Sharam tujivam parameva laksham. Aksham dasha pranamadamo. Chakre biminam ratitam chachivam. Dano hitasya pranavam patanti. Sharam tujivam parameva laksham. Aksham, the spokes on the chariot wheel. Dasha, 10. Pranam, the 10 cans of air flowing within the body. Adama, irreligion. Dharmo, religion, 2 sides of the wheel, up and down. Chakre, in the wheel. Abhimanam, false identification. Ratinam, the charioteer or master of the body. Cha, also. Jivam, the living entity. Danu, the bow. He, indeed. Taja, his. Pranavam, the Vedic mantra Omkara. Patanti, it is said. Sharam, an arrow. 2, but. Jivam, the living entity. Param, the Supreme Lord. Eva, indeed. Laksham, the target. Translation: the 10 cans of air acting within the body are compared to the spokes of the chariot's wheels, and the top and bottom of the wheel itself are called religion and irreligion. The living entity in the bodily concept of life is the owner of the chariot. The Vedic mantra pranav is the bow, the pure living entity himself is the arrow, and the target is the Supreme Being. That's why we're supposed to chant so much, because we don't hit the bullseye very easily. So we do it a lot to try and get Krishna. Responsibly, the 10 cans of air acting within the body are compared to the spokes of the chariot's wheels. And the top and bottom of the wheel itself are called religion and irreligion. Haribol. Haribol. The living entity in the bodily concept of life is the owner of the chariot. The Vedic mantra, pranav, is the bow. The pure living entity himself is the arrow, and the target is the supreme being. That's nice, isn't it? When you're chanting your japa, do you hit the target very often? Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. 10 kinds of life air always flow within the material body. They are called prana, apana, samana, vayana, udana, naga, karma, krikala, devadatta, and dhananjaya. They are compared here to the spokes of the chariot's wheels. The life air is the energy for all of a living being's activities, which are sometimes religious and sometimes irreligious. Thus, religion and irreligion are said to be the upper and lower portions of the chariot's wheels. When the living entity decides to go back home, back to Godhead, his target is Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the conditioned state of life, one does not understand that the goal of life is the Supreme Lord. Nate vidu swartagatim hi vishnum durashraya ye bahya atamanina. The living entity tries to be happy within this material world, not understanding the target of his life. When he is purified, however, he gives up his bodily conception of life and his false identity as being belonging to a certain community, a certain nation, a certain society, a certain family, and so on. Savopadi vinay muktam tat paratvena nemalam. Then he takes the arrow of his purified life, and with the help of the bow, the transcendental chanting of pranav, or the Hare Krishna mantra, he throws himself toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur has commented that because the words bow and arrow are used in this verse, one might argue that the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entity have become enemies. However, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead may become the so-called enemy of the living entity, this is his chivalrous pleasure. For example, the Lord fought with Bhishma. And when Bhishma pierced the Lord's body on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, this was a kind of humor or relationship, of which there are 12. When the conditioned soul tries to reach the Lord by hurling an arrow at him, the Lord takes pleasure, and the living entity gains the profit of going back to Godhead. Another example given in this regard is that Arjuna, as a result of piercing the Adara Mina, or the fish within the chakra, achieved the valuable gain of Draupadi. Similarly, if the arrow of chanting the holy name of the Lord, one pierces Lord Vishnu's lotus feet by dint of performing his heroic activity of devotional service, one receives the benefit of returning home back to Godhead. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshunan Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchikalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvyeva cha, Paditanam Bhavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. So Shiv Ramaj was saying, I think it was the last time he was here actually in Scotland, that when you do finally go back to Godhead and you look back at all the difficulties that you went through, you think they were not enough. You think, I should have gone through 1,000,000 more. What do you think of that, Chaitanya? So, because it's so much more than you can even comprehend, it's like eternal, blissful life. And you can't imagine even 1,000,000 lifetimes of Brahmanism compared to one half moment of being back in the eternal atmosphere. So when you go back, you look back on the difficulty you went through and you think that was nothing. So that's nice to reflect on here and now, that what I'm going through is tiny, tatenu kompamchi shukshimano. It's a tiny fraction of what I'm due. Now, if I continue on consistently, then going back to God will be my rightful claim. I just have to continue on with some sufferance. Back to Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, if I can just continue with a little sufferance. You don't hear that expression, do you, Jananda? Sufferance. A little sufferance means to tolerate the difficulty. It's an expression which isn't used much now. A little sufferance. So a beautiful example. Om is the bow, or Hare Krishna is the bow, and living entity is firing himself back to Krishna, back to Krishna's lotus feet. Krishna enjoys that. I did hear a story, actually. There was a Mataji, I won't say where or who or how, but she was chanting and she was crying because she'd heard that when you chant inattentively, it's like throwing arrows on Krishna's body. It causes him so much displeasure, so much discomfort. So she was chanting and she was crying and she was saying, I'm so sorry, I hope this chanting isn't disturbing you. I don't want to give you any pain, I just want to give you pleasure, So then the next minute, Krishna came over and put his arm around her and said, everything will be okay. And she was crying and crying and crying and crying. This was during japa. She was at the back of the temple himself. You always couldn't see her. And she said that Krishna's body was covered in dust because he'd just come from the cow herds. So I suppose if you're aware of the Astika Kala Leela, Astika Kala Leela, then you would be aware at what time Krishna was doing what. But that's a very advanced meditation. But suffice to say that if you are concerned about your chanting giving pleasure to Krishna, rather than being concerned about your own pleasure, then obviously you're on the right track. What's the difference between chanting to control your mind and chanting to control Krishna?
Control Krishna, it's like you're doing it for your pleasure.
So if you were chanting away and it wasn't very pleasurable to you, then if you were chanting to try and control your mind, you'd accept that. This is part of the course. But if you were chanting to try and control Krishna, then you'd be getting frustrated. Why isn't Krishna complying? Why don't I find it easier and more blissful to chant? Why isn't Krishna serving me? So underlying it all is really, well, actually, I am the center of attention. I am the most important person in the creation. And everything should be revolving around my desire. That's the underlying false. It's funny how the false ego works, actually. You don't get partial false ego. You're either the supreme controller and the center of the entire cosmic manifestation, or you're an insignificant servant. You can't have, well, I'm just a bit of a controller, but I like doing a bit of service as well. It's quite extreme, the false ego, because the false ego is just a perverted reflection of what's going on. So either you're God or Krishna's God. And someone's got to be God, right? And if Krishna's not going to do it, well, I'm probably the best man around to do the job, so I'll do it. Move over, Krishna, and I'll show you how to do it. There was a film like that. This man, he got to be God for a day, and it was such a headache for him. First of all, everybody was winning loads of money. They all won the lottery. But then because everybody had won, nobody wanted to go to work. So all the bins were full and the electricity wasn't working because everybody was just sitting back at home with £100 million. So it's not an easy job. Of course, for Krishna, it's amazing that he's simultaneously God and a person who's not aware of his God-like nature simultaneously. That's a Chinta Shakti. Because otherwise Krishna's pastimes should just all be pretense. Oh, he's only pretending to cry. And they show this chasing, he was only pretending. Oh, he's stealing butter and he's looking over his shoulder in fear, but he's only pretending. He knows he's God. He knows he doesn't have to worry about anything. So then that undermines the Leela, you see. So Krishna is not aware that he's God, and he is afraid. And that book by Shubha Vilas, this little cowherd boy, and he's beaten Krishna a few times in wrestling, so he thinks he's stronger than Krishna. And he's saying to Krishna, I know how you kill these demons. And Krishna says, how's that? And he says, well, you're not very strong. So obviously the demons are just like balloons. You just have to pop them. Krishna's laughing, because this is how a child sees it. But the kid is convinced that Krishna's weak, and he's only been really lucky so far. Interesting. So Krishna doesn't allow his Godhead to interfere with his personality. So there's so much going on, and Krishna's Abhigya and Swarat, he's completely cognizant, indirectly and directly, and at the same time he's aloof from everything. So the nature of archery, if you ever tried doing archery, Jayananda was doing archery for a while. Didn't keep it up. But after a while, it takes a while actually. It takes over a year, but after a year you start getting angry. And you start mimicking the way you aim, the way you hold it, and the way you release. How you release the arrow has a big effect actually. You don't release the arrow in a very smooth way. And it only has to be a fraction. And then the arrow goes way off, But once you start hitting the bull's eye and you get used to it, then it becomes consistent. And that's what the chanting has to become. We have to get to the point where we're consistently hitting the bull's eye. We're hearing the mantra, the full mantra, and nothing else is distracting us. And then we do it again, and then we do it again, and then we do it again. We try and do it for 12 seconds. And then we try and do it for 144 seconds, and then we try and do it for 28 minutes. And then you go through these barriers. The first barrier, there was a kingdom by Mahi Ravan. Mahi Ravan was the elder brother of Ravan, and he had a kingdom that was under the water. It was like a different dimension. And to get to it, you had to go into a lotus. And the lotus was so powerful that when you were going down the stem of this lotus, if you didn't say this mantra, it was a special mantra that you had to say, then the stem would just crush you. So as you're going down into the kingdom of Mahi Ravan, you'd have to be saying this mantra. And if you thought of anything else, so we're trying to get out of the first layer, and it takes 12 seconds. So for 12 seconds, can you just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. 4 mantras, and you'll get through the first layer. And then as soon as you space out, and then you don't get out the material energy. You don't get past the false ego. Prabhupada says, the sound vibration of the Maha Mantra dissolves the false ego. So imagine you've got this person, and you take him over a vat, and the vat is full of the acid of the sound vibration of the holy name, and you drop him in the vat. And then the skeleton comes out. And that's it now without the false ego. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, you said
Alan, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. It's a most enjoyable class. Thank you so much. You said getting past the first layer. Can you tell us what this first layer is? Is it just the material energy? What are the other layers you were mentioning when chanting?
There's different layers of distraction, and we get free by different levels of absorption. So you could look at it like Do you remember that pink blotting paper? Did you have that pink blotting paper when you were at school? When we were all kids, we all had to learn how to do italic. So we had this italic lesson. So we all had one of these pens, and you dip it in, and then the first thing you would do is you put it on the blotting paper, and then you would write with it, you know. So if you are able to focus for 12 seconds, there's a certain size that blot would go to. And then if you keep the pen on long enough, which we used to do as kids, the whole paper goes blue. The whole paper explodes, goes blue. That you just have to leave it on long enough. So when you're absorbed for 12 seconds, your consciousness has been affected, Krishnaized, spiritualized. So if you can leave it in like an iron rod, if you leave the iron rod in long enough, it'll go white hot. But for it to go white hot, it needs to be in for 28 minutes and 42 seconds, I think it is. And then it's not an iron rod anymore. That iron rod will behave is normally mundane because of the contamination of the body and the mind. You've become spiritualized, and then it will slowly start to cool off until you get to the point where your chanting is continuous, or even when you're not making the sound, the vibration is still going around inside you, you know. And Kirtaniya Sadahari, the goal is not to chant 16 rounds. The goal is to be absorbed in the mantra for 24 hours a day. 16 rounds is just to get you warmed up.
Another question, you were saying Krishna is Achinta Shakti, and you were mentioning some other parts of his personality. Can you just remind us what those terms were? Just so we.
Abhigya is fully cognizant. Abhigya. Gya is to know, and Abhi means all. So Abhigya means to know everything, past, present, and future. The whole thing. And then Swarat is independent. So Krishna can walk up to a cliff, and then he can jump off the cliff, and he can float down, like he did when he was with Balaram, and Jarasandha was burning it. He just floated down with Balaram. And Krishna is very carefree. He's got no problems at all. You know, he's completely just having fun all the time. What do you think, Jananda? It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Guru. A reflection, comment, or something. It's just at the end of the purport. Prabhupada's saying, by dint of performing this heroic activity of devotional service, one receives the benefit of returning home back to Godhead. I really like this heroic activity, as Prabhupada really puts like devotional service on a high platform, but also makes it is quite rare, you know, because we don't have many heroes, right? It's not a common thing. So it's just right at the end of the purport.
You'll have to join us on Srila Bhakti Chintamani. We had Adi Guru there last night. Went really deep. Sapana was there as well. Normally when we get a bit too deep, we can't figure out. Sapana comes in and helps us. But everyone was a bit stumped last night. And then Adi Guru rang me up afterwards later on. He says, you have to, when you're speaking with the young devotees, you can't get too much into these things. So it was interesting. Yeah, so it's heroic. Yeah, you're a great hero if you see. Because we are jiva, which seems to be like a really boring and uninteresting thing. We're in a very compromised situation, but potentially we can be much more pleasing to Krishna than even the Nityasiddhas, because they're always in that position. But for a jiva to struggle and suffer and come back, Krishna's like so pleased, you know. He's so overwhelmed with gratefulness. You know, if you go up to Krishna and say, I've just brought this soul back, he's like you can't please Krishna more than that, And then the Krishna is so pleased that the little jiva has managed against all obstacles to come back. He sees him as a great hero, He doesn't think he could do it, and he doesn't feel like he can repay the jiva. In many lifetimes of Brahma, it says, I'll never be able to repay you. The pariyayam. Shi kodani tai Maya Pachashi ki jai. Yeah, it's nice. By dint of his performing the heroic activity of devotional service, one receives the benefit. So that's the only thing why Krishna can reciprocate. He says, okay, I want you back with me forever now. I love you so much. So that's how you steal Krishna's heart.
I also like this word dint. I checked online and it says it's just like an activity. It's like by doing something. But the word dint to me sounds like just like a small amount, It could just be a dint. It's like, I don't know if you've got any insight into this word.
Yeah, Srila Prabhupada said also, because Krishna is unlimited, what can we ever do? Our devotional service is only ever tiny, It's like having a big giant and there's a little ant, and the ant is singing the giant's name, And even if the ant gets his name wrong, maybe the giant's called Engelbert, and he's calling him George. Oh, George, I love you, George. Then Engelbert's okay with that because he knows the ant means him, So he's very, he's still very pleased by that. The infinitesimal. And of course, the other amazing thing is Krishna's in every atom, and Krishna's everything. So then everything is in every atom. So everything that's infinite is also infinitesimal. So you kind of lose a sense of size and time and space on the spiritual platform. Everything's eternally present. And nothing's bigger or shorter or fatter or heavier than anything else. They're just all in this dimension where it's not restricted anymore.
Haribol Prabhu. Can you clarify something? It says here the Vedic mantra pranav is the bow, and you says that could be the Namaha mantra as well.
Yeah.
So why would it say in the Srimad Bhagavatam that it's a pranav when it can be both things? Are they interchangeable? Do they both perform the same function?
So the actual reference is okay, so it's nice the way Srila Prabhupada comes in with Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur and Sridhar Swami, especially. They were the two main commentaries on the Bhagavatam. So if you look sometimes at a translation of the Bhagavatam before Prabhupada did it, you see the commentary. You see where he's getting everything from. So it says, where is it? Yeah. Is that in the last paragraph? Oh, the second to last paragraph? End of the third paragraph. What? End of the first paragraph. Oh, I see, yeah. Okay. And then Prabhupada, he's saying that pranav can also be Hare Krishna. The living entity tries to be happy within this material world. When he is purified, he gives up his conception, asset nation. He then takes the arrow of his purified life, and with the help of the bow, the transcendental chanting of pranav, or the Hare Krishna mantra, he throws himself toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you're asking, how is it that Prabhupada is referring to the Hare Krishna mantra as being also the same as pranam?
Well, I'm just asking for some clarification because, I've heard that Om is more impersonal than Hare Krishna. And so would you derive the same result if you were just to sit and chant Om all day? Some people go in circles and chant the Om mantra at certain gatherings. Are they getting the same benefit because Om is contained within the Hare Krishna mantra, or is the chanting of Hare Krishna more potent? So I'm just asking for some clarification on this point.
What do you think, Jayananda? What would you answer? How would you answer that? It's what? More important.
It's more on.
Oh, it's more than Om. Take them. How is it? What would be your reference to that? Where would that come from?
That's what I'm saying.
You don't have a Shastic reference. Anyone have any? Yeah.
Don't have a Shastic reverence, but I'm just looking at the definition of pranav, and it says that which is sounded out loudly. It seems that pranav actually just means a sacred mantra. Typically Om, but it can also be other things. The overview is pranav yoga is a meditation on the sacred mantra Om, as outlined in the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and Yoga Sutras and Tanjali. So Om's a Bij mantra, right? And the Maha Mantras. The Maha Mantra.
There's a book called Chantmo by Shiv Ram Raj, and at the end he says that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is not a mantra, it's a song, because mantras always start with Om, and usually they have Dhimahi at the end, which is what the Gayatri mantra is. Practically all the lines in the Gayatri mantra when you're chanting, they all end with Dhimahi and start with Om or Klim. Klim is also like a seed mantra, so Klim is for Lord Chaitanya, and Klim Krishnaya, Klim, and also for Krishna as well. It's referring to Vishnu Tattva. And there's Hrim Shram for Lord Singular, that's the seed mantra for that. So the Maha Mantra is a song, and it's been especially empowered by Lord Chaitanya. So because he's saying, chant this Hare Krishna mantra, then you're especially empowered because you're doing what Lord Chaitanya has asked you to do. Then you get the special blessings that you're following the instruction of Lord Chaitanya. He's asking you to do this. So that's also significant. And the Om mantra is generally more impersonal, more of an impersonal approach. And we're being encouraged, because the Gayatri mantra, you have to be, and a lot of the mantras, Vedic mantras, you have to be purified, you have to come to a certain level, then the mantra will take you to a certain height. But the Maha Mantra goes to the lowest, where you don't have to even be initiated, and it can take you right up to the highest, Madhurya Ras. But the Gayatri is there, and the Om mantras are there to help us to chant Hare Krishna better, so that we can get purified and come into the Modi goodness. And then when you get first initiation, your chanting becomes more empowered. And then when you get second initiation, again, it becomes more empowered. And then takes on yours. Actually, Kanama Maharaj was saying, to get this special taste of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he said, you think you can get it by taking sannyas? Nah. He says, it's okay for the first few days. And then he says, you think you can get it by being a guru? Nah. You have to get it by the mercy of the holy name, by humble service. And that can be anyone. You could be, Mother Ratnaranjini was a housewife, and she was always just in the background serving, But that didn't bar her from attaining the highest levels of Krishna consciousness. So it's open, it's accessible to everybody, irrespective of position. And because we come into devotional service with a kind of mundane idea of what advancement means, then we tend to think, when I get some position, then that will automatically mean I'm becoming more advanced. When I'm the head Pujari, or the head case, or the head bin emptier, the head something, then I'll be getting somewhere in my devotional service. So that's Vinimuktam, that verse that Prabhupada, Sarvapadi Vinir Muktam, Tat Parat Vena Nirmalam. So we have all these like mundane ideas that we bring with us into devotional service, and we try to engage our advancement by that, you know. How important do people see me, you know? Then I'll know I'm really advanced. It just matters how much Krishna appreciates you. And he may put you in a situation where you don't get much appreciation from anybody else. But that's okay. Saves you from false ego. That's the last thing that comes in Manashiksha. You get rid of all your anatas, and the very last one is Pratishta. And that's prestige. And you're thinking, I know so many slokas. I'm completely free of sex attraction. I lead the best kirtan. I can play all the instruments. And that prestige comes in. Whereas when you're a new devotee, you can't really develop prestige because you're struggling to do anything. You're struggling to play the kartals. Struggling not to clang them too loud. Struggling to... If you're playing kartals, the easiest way to do is, if you can't dance in time, then there's no way you're going to play kartals in time. No way, Jose. Because you're learning to become coordinated. So when we do kirtan, it may seem like, oh, here we go again. When's this going to be over? But it's an exercise in learning how to synchronize. Because in the spiritual world, it's like a musical. They're all dancing to the same. I'm just mad about Harry, and Harry's just mad about me. It's all synchronized. Everything is spot on, you know. So you can't be playing the kartals out of tune. So the first thing is you get the body synchronized. So it's so that's where you move your foot. When you get the feet in time, then you can start getting the kartals in time. Like that, you know. So in the beginning, we can't even serve prasadam properly without slopping it all over the place. So there's not a lot of pratishta there, you know. We're just like making a mess of everything we come in contact with. But when we actually start getting it down, and we start getting free of our arts, that's when we start thinking. I offered that arti, by the way. Did you see that? Did you notice for the chamra? Yeah. That was like totally cool. Did you see that? So then the pratishta comes in. And then once that comes in, the door opens and all the anatas can come back in. After all that hard work, they can all come back in. Tricky, eh? It's a tricky one. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Defense against this pride.
What's the best way to prevent yourself from becoming proud?
Yeah, what's the best defense against it? How can we remain sort of humble, or how can we keep an eye on that and like stop it from, undoing what efforts we've put in?
Well, you can learn by hearing, and if you're not so bright that you can learn by hearing, or you find it hard to hear, then you can learn by seeing. And if you can't learn, because you'll see a lot of mistakes get made as you go on in your life. You'll see devotees come and they'll make mistakes and then they'll leave again, and you learn, okay, so not a good idea to do that. So you learn by seeing, or you learn by experience. So if you're going to learn by experience, which unfortunately for a lot of us is the way that we do it, it's the school of hard knocks. So after you've been in the school of hard knocks for 10 years, you may find there's a few lumps on your head. And you're seriously thinking of getting a helmet, because you've been getting bashed around that much. But if you're like really determined to just hang in there anyway, every time you get a knock, you just say, okay, fair enough, part of the course, and that's fine. It's still a process of learning. It's just a more difficult one. Better that you wise up, and you see things and you learn. And then if you can get to the point where you can hear something and you're like, wow, I'm going to do that, then that's the best. That's the easiest, smoothest path back, But we don't learn so easily by hearing, because one of the problems is that we think that we've learnt it when we've heard it, which is not necessarily the case. That's why we can be thinking, I've heard this before, I've heard this over and over again. I'm getting bored, I'm not interested, It's because we haven't actually learned it, because if you'd learned something and you heard it, you'd be excited, you'd be like, wow, yeah, that's right, I've learned that, I've overcome that now. You'd be excited, So Keshav Maharaj was saying that the first thing we have to know is how much we don't know. That's the first thing we have to know, because we come thinking that we know everything practically, and then we have to Krishna kind of gently breaks it to us. You don't actually know very much at all, really, son. Sorry, son. Okay then. Yes, Ishan, probably.
Hare Krishna, I'm going to open up another can of worms. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I was looking at this verse of Salapari, Vinera Muktam, and just talking about getting rid of material designations and
Yeah.
being free from material desires. So I was just thinking, what do we want to try to become desireless first, or would we need to get rid of our material designations? Or is it something that goes hand in hand?
Well, we're going through Shuddhavati Chintamani, and at some point, greed has to develop. So you can only have greed if you've tasted something. Like if I tell you, I've got this thing, it's called Choki Wako. And you go, Choki Wako? Say, yeah, you wouldn't believe it. What can I have a taste? So you get one taste, Choki Wako. And then you get greedy. So you have to get a taste. And then you will desire the right thing. Right now we've got tastes for things, but they're all things that just ultimately end in futility. And we're being distracted and cheated by those tastes. And so we want to clear away all this mundane thing and at least get a little taste of Bhav. Bhav is like, Prema is like the full sun, and Bhav is like a pencil of light. Like when you see the clouds sometimes and the light comes out, that ray is Bhava. And if you can just get it once to shine on you, it's like so blissful to feel that pure love. Wow, that's what I want, And then it goes away. And then after that, you're committed. I want that. That is it. That's what I've been looking for. That's what everyone's looking for. Everyone wants that, And it's not that you have to be free of anartas and beyond ruchi or sakti to get that. Bhav can just come shining through at any time. You could walk in the door, you've been away for 3 weeks, you don't even know how to clean yourself properly, you're chanting and that Bhav can just come in. And then after that, then all the other desires become pale and insignificant. And this one desire to achieve that Bhav again becomes the strongest, So that's what we're trying. We'll go today and we'll work hard, and there'll be so many different results that'll be there, but the real result will be that you experience some Bhav. And then we try and increase the interval, shorten the intervals in between the next time we experience it, And it's funny, Sankirtan is very much like chanting. You generally find you chant your best rounds on the day you don't feel like chanting, and you're thinking of not chanting anymore. You're like that with the beanbag. If I can throw this, I've already tried. And then you think, it's actually a waste of time. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just kidding myself on it. Okay, I'll just do it anyway. And you chant. So when you do that, you've just saved yourself a lifetime. Because it could have taken another lifetime before you came back again. And it's the same with Sankirtan when you really do not want to do it that day. And the mind's telling you, this is going to be terrible. It's going to be so terrible. I'm telling you, this is going to be terrible. I'll just do it anyway. And you do it, and then suddenly, Krishna completely gives you the mercy because you've surrendered. You've neglected what the mind's telling you, and you put some faith. You've just gone ahead and done it anyway. Can you imagine Srila Prabhupada's mind? He's coming onto the Jaladuta. All the reasons why you shouldn't even go. This is going to kill you. You're 70 years old. You've got no money. You don't know anyone over there. And the voyage almost did kill him. When he just, well, I'll just do it. That's what I've been asked to do. And now I think isn't the right time, so I'm just going to do it anyway, despite all what the mind's saying. So that's the thing. You have to be able to just dismiss the mind. The mind will preconceive. You're out there on Sankirtan, and in the first 20 minutes, you've been told to put the book in places which would bring tears to your eyes. Then it gets on to an hour, and then the mind's like, okay, we've been like this for now. The spot is useless. The people are useless. I'm useless. Everything's useless. Just a waste. I may as well just go back and chant some extra rounds, because it's just going to be the same as this, but probably worse. That's what the mind speculates. But then the next minute, somebody comes along and they give you £100, £500. They love it, and then suddenly the whole mind spins. Wow. Okay, there's probably more people like that, and it completely changes. So we have to learn not to take the mind's preconceived idea of what's going to happen seriously. Otherwise, we'll miss the mercy, the nectar. Yes, Congar in the key. Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaur Premanandi Haribol.